And good afternoon, everyone. We will get started with today's webinar. My name is Alisa Sladinska, and I work for the City of Chicago Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection, BACP. Welcome to the BACP Business Education Workshop Webinar Series. We have adapted our regular business education workshops at City Hall into these webinars until further notice. On behalf of our Commissioner, Rosa Scarino, I want to inform you that business licenses can be processed online where applicable by visiting chicagobusinessdirect.org. And as I go through the information, please note I will put it all in the chat box so you'll be able to reference it there as well. And if you are part of the Business Start Certificate program, you can get credit for joining today's webinar by sending an email to bacpoutreach@cityofchicago.org. If you want to learn more about the program, please visit chicago.gov/business-workshops. To help guide your business and employees during Phase 4 of Chicago's reopening process, including the most recent guidelines, please visit chicago.gov/reopening. Also, BACP and the City of Chicago's Office of Emergency Management and Communications created Shy Biz Emergency Alerts. You can opt in to receive targeted emergency alerts for the business community. If you are interested, please visit chicago.gov/Shy Biz Alerts. For today's webinar, we will have a question and answer portion at the end of the presentation, so we encourage you to use the chat box to ask questions. Please make sure you are sending your questions to all panelists, so myself and the panelists today will be able to view your questions. And today's webinar will be Nuts and Bolts of Business Planning and Financial Readiness for Startups, presented by Geri Aglipay, Small Business Majority. Geri, welcome.
Hi, thanks, Elisa. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Nuts and Bolts of Business Planning and Financial Readiness, especially for those in the startup phase. My name is Geri Aglipay, and I'm with the Small Business Majority. Small Business Majority is a nonprofit 501c3 organization. To give you a little bit of background, we've actually been around for 15 years. We are a national organization. I oversee our efforts here in the city of Chicago, but also the Midwest region as well. And what we do is we focus on issues of top importance to small businesses by providing education with partners like the city of Chicago and chambers, other business groups, but also government agencies. And we focus on these issues by providing education and policy and advocacy, issues like self-employment, what that means, access to capital, healthcare, retirement security. We have an online resource hub located at venturize.org that can bring you free resources and education in key areas of running and growing your business. This is just an example of our model as a nonprofit, what we provide to you. We are not a membership organization, so the website hub that I just listed for you, venturize.org, you can get free resources at. And we also provide, when I say we're an education organization, free webinars and in-person trainings as well. We have webinars every other week with the Small Business Administration on Tuesdays during this time of the pandemic to give you up-to-date information on what is happening as well for you as small business owners in Illinois. In this presentation, we're going to go over why entrepreneurship, how to start a business, the business model and business plan, and then financial foundations for your success, and how you can build your own business and essentially be your own boss. But why entrepreneurship? Well, small business ownership in this country is actually the second best way to build wealth next to owning a home. It actually provides the freedom to create income and wealth by capitalizing on a business opportunity to earn income. Maybe there is a franchise opportunity for you. Maybe you've decided there's a niche to develop an app. You can also create a part-time endeavor to supplement your other earnings in addition to your full-time job. It doesn't have to be a full-time endeavor. It can be a part-time endeavor to supplement, or it could be a full-time business, which would be providing your main source of income. The benefit also of being entrepreneur that many people find invaluable is that you can also operate and be your own boss. Many women especially have had challenges of the workplace with balancing time and family. Oftentimes you can also strike out and be a self-employed entrepreneur, or there are people who actually want to own a small business, maybe a micro business of 7 employees, let's say, or more, and they want to provide jobs as well. They'd like to be a small employer firm. And in the end, as I said, this actually helps to build wealth in this country for you next to owning a home, because what happens is if you have a sustainable business that you create, it's going to generate revenue, as you can see on the screen, which then generates business income and personal income that you can invest and save. That is building assets and building wealth through entrepreneurship. So, but what drives revenue and income? Well, you need a product or a service that you're going to offer that's going to create revenue for you. Where's the money? Show me the money. You're going to need to make sure that that product or service meets a need or an interest of customers. You also, when I say human resources up on the screen, do you have the capacity to deliver that product or service, or do you need more staff? I mentioned an app earlier. Maybe you need a developer if you are only versed in developing one aspect of an app. That's an example of it. You also have to have a strategy to have efficient operations. One of the drawbacks of any business operation is oftentimes there's leakage, because people don't have a plan. They don't have a strategy on how you're actually going to operate your business. And when you don't have a plan or a strategy, it also can be difficult because you may be leaking money somewhere. You could be having expenses and that you don't need to have in operating your business. So a strategy is actually helpful for efficient operations. There's also marketing, and this is part of your business plan. What is your marketing to target your client demographics? What channels did they use? If you're going to be targeting a product for senior citizens, you obviously may not be using Instagram or Twitter to market your products, for instance, as an example of social media, because likely maybe senior citizens in a particular demographic may not be using those marketing channels to understand the product or service that you're selling. Most important also, what also drives revenue and income is to make sure that as a small business owner, you have access to financial planning tools. Some of these tools, as I've mentioned already, is a business plan, but it's also understanding your financials, how to conduct a break-even analysis, how to conduct a cash flow projection. These are all skills and tools to learn that's going to help you manage your business as you start up and you grow. That's what drives revenue, and that's what helps drive income for yourself to bring home and create wealth. Now, starting a business. Some of the foundations are a business model and a business plan. You want to first determine what is your business model. What are the services or products you're going to provide? How are you going to sell this product or service? You're probably thinking, well, what's a business model? It sounds so wonky. It does sound wonky, if that's what you're thinking. A business model simply means how you plan to make money. And the journalist and author Michael Lewis put it so eloquently, and so simply, I put it up on this slide. That is what your business model is. How do you plan to make money? So when you hear about that, or you read a Harvard Business Review article about business model, it simply is how that business makes money. There are worksheet tools to help you shape your business model. There's a tool called the Business Model Canvas. There's a tool called the Lean Startup Canvas, an idea napkin, so on and so forth. One model example that I want to focus on, which I think is the most simplest form of a business model worksheet, a worksheet to help you figure out what are you going to do to make money, how do you plan to make money, is the idea napkin. And I'm going to show you right now what the idea napkin is as well. This is an example of the idea napkin, which you can get on this website at Straight Up Business Institute, straightupbusiness.institute/toolkit. And these slides will be available. I believe Lisa will be sharing them with people. But this is an example of an idea napkin. If you're starting up and you've got an idea about what you want to have for a business, and by the way, this is a good time to learn how to have a business, how to start it up, because we are now seeing that many individuals who were essentially found out they could not access funds is because they were missing elements when they started up their business. So coming to this workshop with BACP, I commend you for it, because it's actually a good time to learn how to start a business. So let me get back to the idea napkin. The idea napkin is one tool that I like to show as an example, is the most simplest form of a business model worksheet. I mentioned there are other worksheets that are out there as well. This is one of them that I'd like to focus on. This focuses on who are you? Who are you as a person? What are your skills? What are your knowledge? What's your attributes? What's your distinct? Do you sew on the side? Is that why you want to develop, a new line of clothing that's going to be water repellent? Who are you? What are you offering? What is it, the product or service that you're offering? Who are you offering it to? Why does that person care? Going clockwise. And then what are your distinctive competencies? What we mean here on the sheet when you see distinctive competencies, it's what's your knowledge base that you can contribute to running this business? What's your networks, your social networks that you may have that could facilitate you being a successful owner of the business idea that you have to make this model work? For instance, there was an owner, we did this exercise in class one time, and said, a lawn care business. Great. When it came down to who he was and his distinctive competencies, one of the reasons why he thought of a lawn care business where he could hire local youth in the neighborhood is because he had done that when he was younger. But then when you're looking at your distinctive competencies box here, really want you to ask yourselves how, the 5 hows. How am I going to do this? How am I going to make this business model work? Because one of the questions that came up in class for this individual said he wanted to start a lawn care business, and his distinctive competencies was that he mowed lawns when he was a teenager. The questions came up from the others in class of, have you ever managed other people, much less young adults? The answer was no. So that was a pause into thinking whether or not he was able to fully flesh out his business model of running this lawn care business and hiring youth if he himself had never hired youth, much less managed them. Another question that came up when he said his distinct competencies was that, he knows how to use the equipment. Somebody asked in class, do you know how to maintain it as well for a lawn care business for the people that you'll hire? He said, no, he didn't. So, that was pause for him to think, I still want to move forward with it, but I need to think a little bit more of what this is going to look like in terms of my competencies of running this business behind the scenes, whether it be people that I hire or equipment that I purchase and need to maintain. It brought up another host of questions that he said to the class was, I think I also need to think about what's the type of equipment that I want to purchase that will also save me money, but how am I going to market this? How am I going to market this to people in the neighborhood about why they should choose me besides the fact that I'm offering youth jobs? So he was starting to think about this a little bit more in relation to the box about who you are and what you're offering and why the person would care, because he thought, well, they would care because we're offering, neighborhood youth jobs for the summer for lawn care. But then he thought, lawn care can get pretty expensive. Sometimes they may just opt for somebody cheaper. So what else am I going to offer that's going to be a competitive advantage over other companies? So this is a very simple worksheet, and it's just one type of example of a worksheet to help you flesh out your business model. There are others out there, but I'm just showing you the idea napkin because I find it to be very simple to use as you are starting off your business. As you flesh out your business even more, you may want to move into another type of business model as well. So then after you flesh out your business model and you think about those conditions, you generally want to create a business plan. Because now you're beginning to think, how am I going to focus and plan my actions to start this up, to operate this business and grow it? But why have a business plan though? Well, you want a business plan to test your business model that you have and your idea with the target market. The business plan, putting it to paper, pen to paper, helps you guide decisions based on your time, your money, and your resources. Most often, small businesses start off with people working full-time jobs. So you need to consider, how much time and money you have to devote to it and the resources you have. It's okay. It's a marathon. It's not a race. So I like to say, it's like anything that's worth their time. Take it slow, deliberate, and make sure it's right the first time around. So you don't go back and have to make revisions, which quite frankly, during this time of the pandemic, many business owners didn't pay enough attention early on to developing these financial foundations. And this is a financial foundation, the business plan, which I'll go over. And you spend more time later on trying to reorient yourself. You can reduce the risk of your losing money as well. You'll also be better understand your industry landscape and the demographics. If your target isn't appropriate, can you actually market your business to the right customers? I use the example of proper social media if you have, people over 65. But a business plan also helps you communicate and justify your business model to others. If you are looking for funding, sometimes they're going to want to see your business plan, or if you're looking for a business partner, you want to be able to demonstrate that you have this well thought out pen to paper, not just doing it. So it can also help you obtain business funding, having a business plan. There are two types of business plans. There's a traditional business plan and there's a lean business plan. A traditional business plan is generally pretty lengthy, detailed, comprehensive, multiple pages. There are, and for some of you, you may find that you need to do a traditional business plan. Most often, this is used by companies who are ready to take it to the next phase of growth. Sometimes, though, if you're working with a small business development center, they may want you to do a traditional one because they want to see how much you've given thought to different elements of your company and how deeply you've thought about things. So that's a traditional one. And then there's the lean business plan. A lean business plan is typically a page long to maybe it might be 2 to 3 pages. There's very short, high level, contains key elements. Like I said, it might be 2 to 3 pages, but it is usually 1 page. It's best used if your business model is relatively simple or you want to take a look at things from a 30,000 foot level. And if you know things are going to change, especially if you're in the idea and the startup phases. So let me show you an example of a lean business plan. This is one example of a worksheet, which is a lean business plan. This is called the business model canvas. Now, I know I showed you earlier the idea napkin. If you move from that phase of the idea napkin to fleshing out, to moving to a business plan that will be fleshed out, here is a business model canvas. This is a business model canvas. You can download this online. You can also see examples of how to fill it up, in which you would actually now flesh out things. Who are your key partners? What are your key activities from the businesses? What's going to drive the investment to create those key activities or that product? What's your unique value proposition? Your customer relationships? What are the channels through which you deliver your services or products? Who are your customer segments? Now, this is getting deeper than the idea napkin, but this is also called a lean canvas, aka lean business plan model. There are different types of single-page business models on there. This is one that's called the canvas, so don't think this is the only one. But it'll go over the cost structure. How much are you going to charge people for things based on how much you pay to make sure that you have a profit? And what are the revenue streams that this business will offer you? For instance, if you have a food truck or a cart. Let's say, let me use that instead. An empanada cart that you sell empanadas on the weekdays. And maybe you also want to rent out the empanada cart on the weekends. You don't want to work weekends. That could be another revenue stream if you have a food cart as well. It's just throwing that out there as an idea, like to give you an example of a revenue stream, renting things out, or if you also get additional income from renting out a space in a building that you own for your business. That could be another of an additional revenue stream for your business as well. So this is the business model canvas. It's an example of one type of lean business plan. Now, I'm going to show you the traditional business plan and contrast it because I know there are some business service organizations that may want you to fill it out because they do want to see your level of thinking as to how much you've actually fleshed out your idea. I'm just showing you a table of contents from a traditional business plan of a fast food restaurant. Traditional business plans are multi-page business plans. As you can see here, this traditional business plan has an executive summary, an objectives, the mission of the business, the services that they're providing. They've done a market analysis that's part of their business plan, strategy, management strategy. They've also included their financial plan in here. You know, what is their profit and loss projected? What's the cash flow? What's the balance sheet look like? The balance sheet is how healthy of a state your business is in. So this is an example of a traditional business plan. This is extremely helpful, especially if you're looking for funding and you are looking to have an investor in your company as well, because they're going to want to look at that business plan in addition to looking at the financials as well. So I've shown you now the contrast of a lean business plan and a traditional one as well. So that you say, I'm going back to the lawn person for the idea. They built out their idea even more. They created a business plan from it that has more teeth to it on what's happening. So after that's done, you also, not after, concurrently actually, you also want to make sure that you are readying your business financial foundations. As you start your business, it also helps to make sure that you are financially organized. Financial organization of your business is essentially like making sure you've poured the foundation of your house. Because look at your business plan, your business and model as sort of the framework for your house, but you need a foundation for that house. And I like to say that the financials of your business is the foundations of your house or your business. So you want to make sure that you've established business banking accounts. You want to make sure there are separate business banking accounts. You do not want to commingle your funds with your personal savings account, your personal checking accounts as well. Use budgets, use business budgets to know exactly how much money you're spending to start your business and to operate it, and how much you're actually getting back in terms of revenue and the net profits that you have at the end of the day as well, in terms of, you know, what you're budgeting for your income and expenses. You also want to make sure, and this is especially important, please listen up, maintain organized record keeping and files. This means both your financial records and statements, which includes taxes as well, and your non-financial records, such as leases, contracts that you have for franchise, partnership agreements with your spouse or your child or a family member. That's extremely important to make sure you have partnership agreements on paper as well, and that they're organized. There are business owners I've met who've told me, well, I think I have something in email somewhere where we talked about how this partnership was going to shake out. That's fine if you could find it. It made it very difficult for that individual, though, to then stake claim to their business when their friendship actually dissolved, and thus the business partnership. So you want to make sure you have organized record keeping and files. I want to go back again to the financial records and statements. I have to stress this. Keeping organized financial records and statements and having separate business bank accounts is important during the times when you need funding and if there's an economic upheaval, such as now during the pandemic. Many business owners, many small business owners and self-employed individuals who were not able to access funding from federal aid. Part of the reason, it wasn't all the time, but a common reason that they weren't able to access it wasn't because they were self-employed. It was because a lot of self-employed or solo entrepreneurs simply did not even set up business bank accounts or set up organized financial record keeping. And if you are looking for aid at any time from a government source or a government regulated source, they of course need to make sure that that funding, whether it's a grant or a loan, is given in good faith, because in the end it is taxpayer funding. So making sure that you are who you say you are and that that money is going to be used wisely for your business is so important, that we've seen more stark during the time of this pandemic. So again, I'm going to state, do establish separate business bank accounts. Don't commingle funds. Do it early on. I'll get to how you can do that, and maintain separate records as well. As I said here, separate your business tracking accounts. When you do set up financial record keeping, that's where you track your income separate, but you also want to make sure you save for business cash reserves. Cash reserve is the money that you can quickly access to use as a cash buffer in case that there's an adverse cash flow situation. Cash flow means the money coming into your business, right? And money going out of your business. Many small businesses are suffering from adverse cash flow situations now because of having to be shut down. That is an adverse cash flow situation. What helped many of them in the first couple of months was that they saved for business cash reserves. Simply put, it's your business savings as if you would have a personal savings for emergency. Cash reserves is your emergency savings for your business. So make sure you save for business cash reserves. I want to stress this especially to those of you who are individuals of color and looking to start up a business. Owners of color tend to have less cash reserves than non-owners of color. So keep in mind about maybe saving a percentage or being conscious to save aside a little bit more than you think you'll need, again, in case of adverse cash flow situations such as a pandemic, or it could be something as, a supplier stopped making a bolt for a month. I mean, a month is a long time, and that can affect cash flow if you're creating something. You also want to separate your finances for tax reasons. One, they can actually be tax deductible, so save your receipts. If you have a smartphone, I'm sure many of you have a smartphone. You're nodding your head, you probably do. There are apps where you can take pictures of your receipts that you use for business and record them. So just do a little legwork up front and find out what's the best way that's easiest for your, behaviors and manners about keeping receipts, because they could be tax deductible as well. It also helps you track how much you've actually made and how much has come into your business through the receipts that you have. You also want to separate your business finances for your own personal liability and your own security. When you separate your business finances, you can do it through a doing business as or a legal business entity to be incorporated. If you are choosing to incorporate, whether you're a single owner LLC, partner LLC, S Corp, or C Corp, that does require you to have separated financials. So it's just good practice to separate your financials, period. A mistake made when I saw one of those, I was watching one of those CNBC shows where they help small business owners, and there are a lot of small business owners who are legal entities, yet they never separate their financials, and they get in trouble with the tax preparer, the tax time. So make sure you separate your finances also as a legal entity if you've incorporated. Use your employer identification number. Sometimes it's known as a tax ID number when you open your business checking account or savings account, and not your social security number. Protect your identity. Oftentimes it's easy if you've opted to be a solo entrepreneur and just do business under a doing business as certificate rather than be incorporated. That's fine, but it's really helpful. You can actually still get an EIN number instead of using your social security number, even if you decide not to incorporate and do business as a sole proprietor. Use budgets. Budgets help you prioritize, plan, and control your expenses against how much money you actually have coming in and how much money you actually want to make more at the end of the day. We all want to make more in our pocket. There are two types of budgets, though. For starting up, you're going to have a startup budget. These are usually going to be your one-time expenses and the cost in the initial stages of starting up. So if somebody wanted to start a dog walking business, some of the things that they may need, well, they may need a printer, personal printer, which could be a business expense to start to use dedicated for their business expenses and for business purposes. That's a one-time expense. They may need insurance to obtain once, and that may change if they decide to continue. They may need other one-time expenses like a safe to keep keys at if they are dog walking or they're going into people's houses to walk the dogs. So you do need a safe for that. That's going to be a one-time expense. So that's your startup budget. Then there's your operating budget. These are your costs and expenses that you need to have to operate daily. These are going to be fixed and variable costs in your budget. So here's an example of a startup cost and a budget for starting up. I just gave a reference here on the screen about where you can get that. But as you can see, I know it's tiny, but you've seen here the child care costs, startup equipment, there's educational equipment. This person wants to buy toys and books. There's the marketing cost to tell people that they're in business. There's a website cost, the cost to obtain a website. The cost to maintain a website, though, is going to be part of your operating cost, not your startup budget. Furniture, improvements to a place that they're renting. There's also administrative expenses, utility deposit, a business phone, maybe a business cell phone as well. In essence, these are going to be your startup costs and tracking your one-time costs. That's going to help you better understand whether or not you're actually ready to launch your business in the next month or in 4 months as well, because it is going to cost you money to start a business. You could get assist, whether it be yourself, friends and family, maybe an inheritance. Either way, there is such a thing as investing, what takes money to make money, essentially, or what we call it in the small business and financing world. You got to have skin in the game. You got to show you have skin in the game and put some investments to start this business up. So this is an example of a startup budget from a childcare. Now this is an example of an operating budget. If you have software, this is why it's also important. Let me go back to the screen here. What this is missing on this screen is financial software for a startup cost. I talked about the need to separate your business finances. It's also important to get financial software to track your business finances as well. So, so remember to keep that in mind as I go to this screen, which is an operating budget, which you will use your business financial software to track as well. And this is just an example of a T-card. I just pulled this off a spreadsheet. If you have software to track, you don't necessarily need to use a spreadsheet with a template. But this is showing, how much operating budget a person who owns a T-card projects to have every month. The expenses that they have for themselves, payroll is just owner only. And then down there is the profit, the essentially the revenue, which minus all the expenses, what you can take home in the day. In months 7 and 8, as you can see here on the revenue side, I decided to kind of show something to you. This is the owner decided to take a break and take a 2-month vacation. They're planning on it in July and August. So, but they're actually also rent their cart out on the weekend. So if you're wondering why does it still say $1,000, because they have other revenue renting their cart on the weekend, their T-cart or their empanada cart, whatever have you. So you actually see down here, and you can't quite see it, but you actually saw like this person who wants to run a T-cart, ironically running the numbers, they actually make more money renting their T-cart on the weekends than working themselves. So I thought this was an interesting example, just something as an aside to put there. This is not exactly how you can use an Excel spreadsheet. This is how it may look in a report, how it spits out, but you best to use financial software as well for that. So that's the difference between a startup budget and an operating budget. And again, in the startup budget, what's missing in this example that I actually recommend is your investment in financial software and record keeping for finances, to track your finances. I have a quick questions here. I think I can answer them, Elisa, before we move on. Under what circumstances would a business use a DBA? I will get to that, Sylvia. For Carla, Axion Chicago helped me with the business model. That's excellent, Carla. Axion is actually one of our great partners and their main partners. The business model is different from the business plan. The business plan is actually, the business model helps you figure out how to make money. As I said earlier, the business plan is more detailed as to what your operations are like and your financials are going to be as well. Sylvia, I'll answer your question later at the end. Advice to go backtrack a couple of years to do finances. This is why we're talking to you right now, actually, all of you on this webinar, about the importance of setting this up early, because it can be a headache to not set up your financial and record keeping early on, and then you'll have to hire somebody to do that. Accountants charge a lot more than their associates that they hire on staff, and quite frankly, a lot of this business record keeping, a junior in college already knows how to do, but we're telling you, if you set it up early, you don't have to hire an accountant or one of their associates, basically, who might be an intern in college, to go spend, and you still have to spend the money, but have them spend their time fixing your, needing to backtrack for your finances as well. So Sylvia, I hope that was answered for you on that. It will cost money, whether it be the accountant or their intern, to go and backtrack and make sure that the records are in line in order to get funding, which is why we're talking about it today, setting it up early. Financial record keeping, it's a key way to establish and operate your business. Again, save money and find funding. Here's an example, organized financial records, spreadsheets you can use, but you can also use QuickBooks as a very popular tool. Somebody mentioned Axion Chicago earlier, that was Carla. Axion and other partners of the city has also been offering trainings on QuickBooks, how to use it, knowing that having that software is different from actually using it. So make sure you also know how to use the software once you obtain it as well. And the city and our partners have many workshops on how to use that as well. And once you start doing that, you want to make sure that you want to organize these financial statements of your budget, your cash flow statement, profit and loss income statement, and balance sheet. There are many of our partners who are business service organizations recognized by BACP, who can offer trainings on how to read these financial statements once you start using it as well. So please turn to the City of Chicago for the free resources by us or our partners on many of these classes. And there are partners in the City of Chicago that are nonprofits that offer these trainings on how to read financial statements for free, or they're very low cost as well. So financial record keeping, you're going to track your receivables, which on your statements, financial statements are known as assets. The receivables is the money that you're expecting back to you. It's money people owe you. You need to track that, okay? You want to track how much, money people owe you and who owes you that. Who owes your business money, in short. Your payables are what you owe others. On your financial statements, the payables are going to be known as liabilities as well. Oops, sorry, I skipped ahead. And then there is also, so you want to make sure your financial record keeping tracks receivables, what people owe you in your business, and payables, what your business owes others. It could be payments on your business, it could be debt, it could be taxes as well. Another reason to make sure you have a business savings account, to make sure you're setting enough aside for your taxes, your quarterly taxes, your annual taxes. You also may owe payroll, not just for yourself, but for employees if you have any. Next screen. And then there's non-financial record keeping. Make sure also you track your legal documents, your bank documents, your certificates, your licenses, your permits or registrations. If you have any incorporation documents, whether you're LLC, S Corp, or C Corp, what contracts you have, legal contracts. You know, make sure things are on paper. Property documents. Documents for your website contract as well. You want to make sure if you need to break that website contract, you know, you have it on documentation, what you've signed. Even your contract for your cable for your business. Make sure you have all of that. Now, I want to go over how to open a business as a business account as a single owner startup, because that was a question somebody asked earlier about DBA. This will help answer that. So here's an example with Roxann Roxstar. Roxann Roxstar, she's an apprentice at a plumbing company. She just passed her state exam to get her plumbing license. She's decided when she completes her apprenticeship, she doesn't want to stay on with the company. She actually wants to start her own business. Roxann, you know, wants to be a plumber. Before she obtains insurance, because you do have to have insurance as a plumber, and starts to market herself and do any business for hire, before she even hires out herself for business, Roxann should open a business bank account and set up record-keeping systems. As I said earlier, invest and make sure she has QuickBooks or another financial tracking account. She then should decide on her business structure for operational and tax purposes. Now, this is a case of a single owner startup. There are three types of structures for single owner startups. Sole proprietorship, which you would get a doing business as certificate, single owner LLC or an S Corp, and that's incorporation. So that's the three types she can get. If she's unsure about what structure is best for her tax purposes, it's recommended Roxann goes to a City of Chicago organization that is a small business navigator agency, small business opportunity center, or a small business neighborhood development center through BACP to get assistance on deciding, does she want to be a sole proprietor? Does she want to incorporate as a single owner in LLC, or does she want to be an S Corp? So these are the three. It doesn't say three here. That should say three. Sorry. But these are the three types of business structure, main structures for a single owner startup company. Now, once she's done that, how does she open a business account? She's selected on this screen here, sole proprietorship. She'll select whether she wants to be a sole proprietor, single member LLC, or a single owner S Corp. She then selects her business name. Okay? She has to check online with the Illinois Secretary of State to make sure no one else has that business name. She can choose her own name, Roxann Roxstar, licensed plumber, or she can create a new name, Roxstar Plumbing. Still should check online with the Secretary of State that nobody else has that name. Let's say Roxann wants to be a sole proprietor. That's fine. What she has to do is go to the county and pay a fee to get a doing business as certificate to be a sole proprietor, and she'll do business operating under either Roxann Roxstar or Roxstar Plumbing. She also has to pay to list her business name in an approved publication for a number of weeks. So that's how she'll be a sole proprietor and get the paperwork on showing that she's a sole proprietor. It's called a DBA certificate. The other option she can get also is if she decides not to be a sole proprietor, she can incorporate as a single member LLC or a single owner S Corp. Instead, she no longer goes to the county. Now, if she's decided to incorporate, she'll go to the Secretary of State. County is for DBA if she wanted to be a sole proprietor, but if you want to incorporate, you go to the state. So then you pay a fee to get an LLC certificate of standing or a seal of incorporation. If you get a DBA or an LLC, what you can do now, doesn't matter, then Roxann can go, or you can go to the IRS, and within 5 minutes, that's how you can get an employer identification number to open up a bank account instead of using your Social Security. This is how you can this is how you begin to be a business on paper, while also opening a business bank account in order to open a business bank account, and also get a taxpayer ID, also known as an employer identification number. That takes under 5 minutes. Step number 4, getting an EIN number. Then after all that, you can take your EIN number or your Social Security or ITIN number. It's really up to you. You may need your Social Security, but then you also take your doing business as certificate or papers for incorporation to set up your business bank account. So a lot of times you will see on a checklist, open a separate business banking account. But oftentimes people don't tell you how to do that. And what we've seen is people will open a business bank account with their Social Security number, but not have declared a sole proprietorship or even an LLC. So they're half a business on paper. They're not even fully a business on paper. So going through these steps assures that you're recognized as either a sole proprietorship or an incorporated business. Then you get your tax ID. Then you can open your business banking account. It's a little bit more difficult to open a business banking account, and track records if you don't declare what your type of business structure you have. Here's an example now of how you can now use that business bank account with financial record keeping. So Roxann has $2,000. She got her EIN number. She got her bank account. How does she use this financial record keeping? Well, she actually saved $2,000 in her personal bank account because she knew she wanted to purchase equipment. But now she has a business bank account, right? What Roxann's going to do is now transfer that $2,000 from her personal account to her business bank account, so that on the business financials, it'll show owner invested $2,000. From there, it's going to have a record that she invested $2,000 as documented on the financial statements and by the transaction. Now she can use her business bank account purchasing the equipment because she's kept that separate, and people know where that $2,000 came from for her business. She also uses her financial record keeping software to track how much of the $2,000 she actually spent. Maybe she only spent $1,700 and she has $300 left over. That's all going to be in her business financials, because now she can say, well, I have $100 now I can use for business cards, and I can buy this plumbing wrench. And so essentially, using your business bank account with financial record keeping helps you better understand where your money is going, how you're spending it. It also helps for tax purposes as well. So I hope that's helpful on how you open a business banking account, because oftentimes you will hear from us, meaning the education organizations and groups like us, and even in the state's checklist, the state has a checklist from Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, what you need to do, and it says open a business bank account, but we don't tell people how oftentimes. And what we've known, especially at this time of the pandemic, people didn't know how, or they didn't go through the steps to properly be a business on paper. So we're going over this now, what it means, how do you actually do that? Because that when you do it right, you're actually establishing yourself as a business on paper to track and to get funding for. So how this is going to help, of course, as I said, it's going to help you fund your business to obtain capital to also grow. But you also want to make sure you avoid predatory financing and protect your wallet. There are sources of funding that you can get, family and friends. Many of you will do it. Some of you will use personal and business credit cards. Some will use your line of credit for your home equity and such. Many, though, the majority of funding for small businesses is debt-based capital, not the Silicon Valley equity $1 million investors for the childcare businesses. It simply doesn't exist at this time, at least. So I just want to go over why it's important for a financial foundation. It will help you get funding as well to grow your business. It's not the planning, the business model, and the financial statements and record keeping. For us, we look at it, it is a financial foundation because money talks and no business on paper walks. Basically, people are going to walk away if they don't see you're a business on paper. And you do want to be careful as you do grow your business about predatory lending. Online lending is not regulated at this time. Again, online lending is not regulated at this time. We know there's been a lot of challenges with the headline news of a lot of small businesses unable to get funding from the banks. Do not let that deter you. They are still regulated. Community banks are still regulated. Mission-based nonprofit lenders are still regulated by the federal government, but online lending is not regulated. It is the Wild West, and the interest can be between 400 to recently 4,000% interest rates because online lenders are not required to be transparent in the fees and the contracts that you sign as well. So just be cautious and work with one of the business organizations, nonprofit business organizations with BACP, or you can come to one of Small Business Majority free training online that we also offer, of course, with the City of Chicago and groups like the SBA and others as well. And the reason why we go over this is because in these times, most especially, women and owners of color face the most significant barriers in surviving at this time and finding this capital and funding for their business. And it is actually creating a more fertile space for women and owners of colors to be more vulnerable to predatory lending. Want to also go over how understanding credit, your personal credit, this is your FICO credit score, is going to also be an asset in helping you start your business and grow your business. It also helps you to find safer financing for your business because the better you are able to manage your personal credit, that FICO score, the better you're also going to be able to open up doors to more responsible lending that's regulated and not predatory. And these are the 5 C's of credit, as you can see here. Again, Lisa will send these slides out. Be aware, though, that payment history is paying your debts on time is going to affect your credit the most. Just make sure you pay the minimum payment. Debt utilization is the second highest that's going to affect it the most. In these times during a pandemic, I talked about cash reserves earlier. That's why it's important. More and more owners are using their credit to extend their payments and such. So just make sure that you mind your personal credit. Have a question from Carla about business credit. Not all small businesses use business credit. Not all need a DUNS number. And business credit is not all banks use it as well. So it's going to vary by industry. If you're doing receivables and contracts and such, you're likely to use business credit more. But again, business credit, unlike the FICO score, there's also different systems of scoring for business credit. It's not like the FICO score where it's pretty similar between TransUnion, Experian, and I forget what the other one is, but it's unlike that. So business credit is not the same, and not everybody uses it in factoring for capital. So as you grow your business, and depending what industry you're in, you may need to use business. You may want to get a DUNS number. It really depends on your industry and if that funder is really looking for it, and if you need it for business credit. It's really also, I mean, you could be a $10 million business. They're always going to look at your personal credit first, not your business credit. I did have a question from an owner one time who was upset that banks were always looking at personal credit and not the business credit because their business credit was so good. Well, it turned out that the individual had declared bankruptcy twice. And the reason why the banks and financial institutions look more at personal credit is they want to make sure at the end of the day, do you have the ability to pay? not just your business, but if things go belly up, do you have the ability to pay back that and still able to house yourself and essentially still put food on the table? The regulated financial institutions do not want to are not predatory. They do not want to, they want to make sure you can still be able to have a lifestyle. So don't feel that you're turned down because it's personal. People, the regulated financial institutions, when they turn people down, it's because they also acknowledge that you still need to pay debts to live, and we can't have you taking on debt and credit that you may not be able to pay and have us be responsible for that. It's simply irresponsible. So make sure you manage your personal credit to decrease your expenses. It helps access capital and credit, but really it helps increase your financial wellness and your mental well-being, being organized from the start. For assistance, we actually have a locator map where you can find business assistance centers across the United States, here in Chicago, in Illinois, not just SBA Small Business Development Centers, but also many of our nonprofit partners who are also partners with the city as well. There's a wonderful checklist on there to be loan ready as well. So questions, I have a couple of minutes to answer some questions as well. An organization to review your financial plan, any of the Small Business Opportunity Centers with the City of Chicago, BACP, and can help you with that. They offer free and low-cost assistance. Also, a Small Business Development Center through the Illinois Small Business Development Network would also can help you with your business financial plan and within a business plan is also. That is all related to your business finances. I have a question from Adrian. Can an LLC have a DBA? It's usually one or the other. They're both recognized, for tax purposes. It's just one is going to have, in terms of you paying taxes as an owner, one is going to have implications on how much taxes you pay, and also implications on whether your personal finances are also liable if you are ever sued as a business versus being a sole proprietor. So again, that's something we cannot answer. No, that's a decision that you have to make as a business owner. If being a sole proprietor with a DBA or incorporating and being a single owner LLC or an S Corp is best for you, you're going to have to make that decision based on, your resources, your risk tolerance, what you're able to, what you think is best and appropriate for you as well. I think I answered Carla's question on business credit as well. It seems that, so we have a person here building personal credit to qualify for business credit. Any ways to establish it? I heard a DUNS number is a better way to acquire credit. A DUNS number is just a number where you may build business credit, but if the best way for credit is really working on your FICO score, paying your bills on time, making sure that you're at least making the minimum payment. That's the best way to build your personal credit to open the doors up for business credit as well. As I said, and we've known owners with $4 to $10 million revenue businesses. The funders looked at their personal credit all the time. And it really depended on their industry of whether or not they were going to look at their business credit as well. I have a question from Adam. What are my thoughts on Kiva for microloans? Kiva is a wonderful program. So that's a very good program. They're not predatory. In fact, we have a partnership with them in relationship. So they're a good program. I can tell you they are not a predatory program if that's what you're asking, Adam. On our website at venturize.org, in addition to smallbusinessmajority.org, where we have a tip sheet for navigating finances during COVID and avoiding predatory lending. On Venturize, you can also find lenders who signed up to be the Responsible Business Lending Coalition, which we're a founder of. Where can you find guidelines for permits for T-carts? Actually, BACP, Elisa, can help you find out guidelines for permits as well. So one last question.
It's Elisa. I just want to chime in for the permits question. So like I mentioned in the beginning, certain business licenses and permits are being processed online. If you go to chicagobusinessdirect.org, there's a contact form there and a phone number. So if you have specific questions, you could shoot an email and a business consultant will get back to you about what kind of permit or license you may need. And I will put that website in the chat box so you guys can reference it there as well.
Wonderful. Thanks, Elisa. And one last question. We're at time now. Adam asked if there are any business financial software do I recommend. No, not recommending one or the other. We don't want to make a pitch to buy one. I know, though, that QuickBooks is used a lot, and so there's another one, and I can't remember the name, that's used frequently. Do want to say to you, Adam, and everybody else, invest in good software from the beginning. Often, we've been hearing in the last couple of years that business owners are going for kind of less expensive, off-the-shelf software, and it causes problems later on when it comes time to pay taxes and run records such as that. So make sure you're using a robust software that's going to be there for you and your business as it grows, because what we have found, especially for owners that don't really have high profit margins, it's more costly afterwards to fix and fix those records that you thought were being tracked properly with a cheaper versions that seem like it's going to just do the job for what you need. So just be careful about that, and make sure you invest in good, rigorous software that's going to grow with you. So with that, thank you so much to our partners at the City of Chicago, BACP, to Elisa and Geraldine for having me again. If there's any questions that people have, here's how you can join our network. Again, we are not a membership group. We essentially send out newsletters on how you can be more engaged with our education, but also we're a policy group. So we want to make sure that we represent you as business owners at the table. And then here are some of our online resources for you as well.
All right, Geri, thank you so much. I did just want to mention that this webinar will be posted on our YouTube page in the next couple of days. So if you need to go back and reference any of the information Geri spoke about, you can go to youtube.com/ChicagoBACP. And I did just put that in the chat as well. As always, Geri, this was extremely helpful. Lots of good information, especially walking through just setting up a checking business account. I had a couple people private message me saying thank you for that. So thank you, Geri.
Always a pleasure. Thanks, Elisa. Thank you all, and be safe, be well, and wash your hands.
Absolutely. Everyone, have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.